Benedict, mobility and M2M industry analyst, SAP mentor, blogger, and urban tomato farmer. I want to thank you for joining us today for this podcast. I hope you enjoy.
I have with me my guest, Alex Brisbourne from Core Telematics. Thank you for joining me today, Alex.
It's a pleasure, Kevin. Thank you for inviting me.
So I'm calling in here from Boise, Idaho. Where are you calling in from this afternoon?
I'm actually in Toronto in Canada today, where it's 83 degrees and sunny, which is pretty unusual for mid-April.
My, that sounds, we're here in spring and rainy weather today. Alex, if you would, why don't you introduce for our listeners today who you are, your role at Core Telematics, and a little bit about your personal background.
Sure, I will, Kevin. My name is Alex Brisbourne, President COO of Core Telematics, a company which we founded in 2003, really as a mobile virtual network operator to specifically focus on the unique needs of the emerging machine-to-machine communications market. What Core is effectively is a communications hub provider. We deliver cellular and satellite services for use throughout the globe in conjunction with our partners, AT&T, Verizon, Vodafone, Iridium, and others, which allows industrial-grade, high-reliability connectivity to be assured at cost-effective levels for machine-to-machine applications wherever they may be. These include marketplaces such as the supply chain or logistics markets, medical, health and wellness management systems, payment processing, vehicle location and tracking, telematics services, the OnStar type applications, as well as a significant number of emerging, really business-to-business to consumer type applications as well, aftermarket devices in the automotive telematics world.
Oh, that's excellent. For the readers and listeners out there, you know that I talk a lot about both enterprise mobility and M2M, and I get on my soapbox periodically and I rail about how I believe those two are coming together because embedded wireless devices are in just about everything today. And Alex, do you see the same thing from your perspective?
I certainly think that we're on that course now, Kevin. If we cast our minds back 6 or 7, 8 years to the days when we were first starting to see the IP networks starting to appear and look like they were going to be for real in the wireless marketplace, I think there was a lot of excitement. Let's be fair, the wireless industry was at that point on, I think, the 6th or 7th attempt to make a good first impression on the wireless data experience. For those that remember it, we'd gone through lots of proprietary networks, pager networks, things which had gone away, CDPD or Mobitex. We'd gone through WAP services, and all of us that were early users of BlackBerries may remember that they were little tiny devices that, for all intents and purposes, were pagers, and they ran on pager networks. And then the IP network started to come along, and I think there was a lot of excitement in the enterprise space that there was an opportunity to externalize management information, really as a mechanism of saying, I've got stuff inside, how can I get it outside to where my customers, where my sales reps, my service reps, and so on were based. And bluntly, that didn't really get a whole lot of legs. For all of the work which went through beyond the BlackBerry, there wasn't a whole lot that was actually happening over on the email experience. At the same time, though, what we saw was enterprise-class organizations rather quietly getting involved in the M2M space from the bottoms-up perspective. There was applications in industrial process control, systems which were being used for example in pipeline monitoring. In the fleet departments, there were guys actually building out fleet distribution systems which were optimizing route miles for trucks out there, reducing gas consumption, ultimately getting benefits for looking like they're being greener because they were not creating so much trouble out there. I think what we're seeing now is we're starting to see the successes from the bottom meeting with the real interesting enterprise IT drivers from the top, where rather than moving outside data or inside data rather outward, we're very much moving to the point where being able to have much, much more ubiquitous remote data collection and management, and then coupling that with data management and data mining services, we're getting much better information to allow better decisions to be made more quickly. And I think that's where M2M is actually starting to make an impact in the enterprise.
Oh, absolutely. And I see that daily in the articles I'm reading in my M2M News Weekly newsletter that I'm producing now. A couple of questions for you. You talked about, I think before we continue, Alex, can you give us a definition for the readers that might not be familiar with M2M and machine-to-machine? What does that really mean, and what's involved in M2M?
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting terminology being used, which is actually not helping in this market. We hear about connected devices, embedded wireless, machine-to-machine communications. But ultimately, think of any individual device for which the connectivity is a critical but invisible component of information or data delivery. And it typically does not have an individual user as part of that service delivery experience.
Okay.
Perhaps a graphical example would be getting a book delivered to your Kindle.
Yes.
The wireless network is the equivalent of FedEx of a few years ago, or UPS.
Right.
It just delivers it electronically. The same thing is taking place if I'm delivering information on a pipeline that perhaps is looking like it has an impending failure. I'm actually detecting maybe the wall thicknesses on a pipe. I'm transmitting that from that remote location to a central location, and the service tech is becoming involved. An M2M application that many of your listeners would be familiar with would be GM OnStar, the blue button.
Yes.
I press it, and either I send information to that call center, or my airbag going off sends an information to the call center, and through the wonders of GPS, location technologies, and others, they can detect the significance of the impact, where you were, what corner of the vehicle has been affected, frankly, whether they can still hear you. If you're talking and breathing, maybe they're not. And so there's lots and lots of information which can be collected. But bottom line is that M2M essentially are devices talking to applications rather than people talking to people.
That I think you nailed it there. That's a very concise explanation and definition.